Okay, I'm going to call to order the April 20th meeting of the Harwich Conservation Committee at 6:30 p.m. And this is a hybrid meeting tonight. The public may attend in person here, although we're in a small meeting room, or can attend online for instructions for joining the go-to-meeting. You can find our agenda on the Town of Harwich website. So our first item on the agenda tonight is an update from the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mike McCaskill, on the status of all things to do with the Main Street bogs.
Good evening,
Good
Chairman,
evening.
members of the commission, Amy. We're getting close, and that's the most of the update. So I spoke to the attorneys today. They have gone back to the attorney that was originally involved in that purchase and that town meeting article, Michael Ford, who happens to be our town moderator. And Michael has confirmed that the portion of that property that the building, that the tech school would like to put, where they want to put the building, was not actually purchased with Chapter 97 money. So the deed work is being done. There is an article on town meeting floor asking town meeting to approve a long-term lease as a safety net for us. But as of today, our attorney, KP Law, does not believe that we are going to need anything more than what we already have. The tech school's lawyer has been the holdup, really, because they want a long-term lease and they want to make sure that nothing can come back from the town to throw them out. So they are dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Questions?
Well, let's see if there are questions. I think I'm going to start with our members. We have two members who are on the line. Let's start with Mark. Are you there, Mark?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Do you have questions or comments?
I have a question. What portion of the land was not deeded for that particular use initially? Was it where the house used to be, or is it further out closer to the street? Do you have any idea, Mike?
It's where the house used to be.
Is that where the school intends to construct a facility, that particular area?
Yes.
Okay. Have any idea how large it is?
No, I don't. That would all be part of the lease if we get to that point.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
so for those of us who are not familiar with the history, can you describe where that is, where the house used to be?
Do you know that? It's where the Quonset hut is now.
I see.
So if you,
That's what the lawyer said.
right, so if you
Oh,
walk
I thought you
onto
said
the
house.
property from from Main Street, you go in, you have bogs on either side.
Yeah.
It's just past that, I believe. I can't remember if it's like directly in front of you or on the right-hand side, but in the vicinity of the bogs.
Where the house used to be?
It used to be on
That
the
used to be
hill.
on the hill.
Used to be on the hill?
On the
Back.
northwest corner.
Where that barn is now.
To the left of that, to the west of it.
I'm only going by what the
I'm
attorney
trying
said.
to, I'm trying to remember.
But certainly, if we get to the point where we can make a lease, that will be before Conservation Commission as to where they build, where they would be able to build.
Well, you can see where the power lines are. Follow the power lines.
Yeah.
That's where the house was.
Okay, a little farther back than I thought.
Okay, so that's Mark. Sophia, yes, Sophia? You have questions or comments?
Hi, no questions so far, just listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Jim?
Yeah, no questions, but I would like to thank Mike for the update.
Welcome.
No comments, right?
Alan?
Not-
Amy?
So you're saying lease, the terms lease and intermunicipal agreement have both been used, which are we,
Lease is the preferred method now by both councils.
okay,
So they want to get away from the IMA.
interesting. that's fine, just want to be
And
clear.
it really relates to the amount of time that they want to lease it for. They want a long-term lease.
Yeah,
They don't want to put a lot of money into the property and then get thrown out in 20
it's
years.
understandable.
I just have, do they have to have a lease written and open to the public to bid on it, or?
Procurement. No. This would be voted by your board, and this would be voted by the Board of Selectmen. Town meeting will have an article this year approving a long-term lease for a lease with the tech school.
So does the current, is it Article 60 that it, in the warrant that addresses the intermunicipal agreement, does the language in that article cover a lease as well?
The attorneys say yes.
I see. Okay.
And Alan, this is not gonna be for money. This is going to be a cooperation with the town, so we would not be putting it out to bid for money.
Okay, so we may have members of the public who want to comment or question, and there is someone off mute online. Is there anyone online who wishes to, who has a question or a comment on this topic? If not, please mute yourself. Thank you. So anyone in the room who has a question or a comment?
Can I just make a quick announcement to that effect? So at this time or any other time this evening, if the public needs to make a comment, in order to be heard by everybody there, you're gonna need to come up to the table, or you can sit here next to me and we'll be able to pick you up from there, just so you know.
Okay, well, it sounds like there's nothing further, but thank you,
Thank you.
Michael, for
Thank you,
coming.
Pat.
Yeah. Those are minutes. The agenda's over there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next, we have discussion and possible vote to hold a conservation restriction on the Harwich Conservation Trust 67.1 acre Spruce Woods property at the end of Spruce Road.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we still have a quorum, that's good. So, do you want to identify yourself, and is Michael Locke also?
I think Michael was going to introduce.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members of the Town Conservation Commission, Michael Locke, Executive Director of Harwich Conservation Trust here. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Great. Sorry I can't be there in person. Today representing in person is Tom Evans, President of the Harwich Conservation Trust Board of Trustees, and Mark Robinson, Executive Director of the nonprofit Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trusts. It's a regional nonprofit land trust service center, and in this case is under contract to the town of Harwich on behalf of the select board to complete compliance requirements for the town's state $400,000 land grant, which will reimburse the town's Community Preservation Act authorization of $950,000, which was authorized by town meeting voters through Article 37 in May 2022, toward the Harwich Conservation Trust's purchase of the acreage that is the subject of the conservation restriction before you for review. That acreage, as a reminder to everybody, is in the Six Ponds District of Critical Planning Concern and adjoins an assemblage of existing town, HCT, and state protected open space, creating an overall tract of about 400 acres with interconnected walking trails. This subject acreage, as part of the conservation restriction, is also within the watershed to 3 of the ponds in the Six Ponds Special District. Those 3 ponds being Cornelius Pond, Walker's Pond, and Aunt Edie's Pond. The town, as part of the Article 37 May 2022 town meeting vote is to receive a permanent conservation restriction to be jointly held with the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation. That state agency, short DCR, is also contributing funds for the preservation of this property. And part of the conservation restriction review and approval process is for you to review the terms. You have the conservation restriction, and Mark and I and Tom are available to answer any questions. We would also respectfully seek your approval of a letter from your Conservation Commission to the Select Board recommending the Select Board approval of the conservation restriction, because the Select Board is a signatory to the conservation restriction. So we're glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Amy, do you have comments?
Sure, none so much on the actual draft conservation restriction, but what I would recommend is, because they have a deadline in June to get this done, is that the Conservation Commission write a letter of support to the Board of Selectmen to do the conservation restriction pending a final document, which of course you would see. So, but the terms are pretty standard in terms of what you're gonna do. Passive recreation is allowed. We would help monitor and of course, take care of the property as the town and the Harwich Conservation Trust do on a lot of our pieces. We work collaboratively, so I have no questions. It's just not in final form yet. So I can't, the only thing I could say is I'd recommend you write a letter supporting it to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
No
comments?
comments.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm completely in support of writing a letter to the Board of Selectmen supporting the fact that we, I guess, jointly hold this conservation restriction with DCR.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the status of it, I think it would be wise, to expedite the timing, that we authorize Amy, with the assistance of any members of the commission, to sort of finalize the language for the commission.
Yep, I can draft a letter.
Stan?
No additional comments, I agree with Jim.
Okay. Sophia? Have anything to add?
No comments.
Mark?
Nothing to add, I agree with Jim's comments.
Okay, well, I also agree with Jim's comments. I fully support this. I guess the question is the timing here, but again, I'd like to solicit remarks from anybody online. Does anyone online wish to have any questions for Michael or the other two attending here, or comments? Hearing none, does anyone in the room have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Mark Robinson, the Executive Director of the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trust, working on behalf of the town on this project. The reason that it's not available yet to be signed by the Conservation Commission is because we're waiting for the attorney for the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs to put the final approval on the language for the state's interest. So as soon as we have that, then it will be circulated for signatures by everybody.
Okay.
So if we're hurry up and waiting, that's what we're doing right now, for one person to give us the high sign. But as soon as that comes forward, we would like to get this signed, and having your support tonight will help that.
So do you have any notion of the timing for that?
They understand that this is grant-driven, has a deadline of the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of June, and then we have to get all these signatures before that in order to have a closing. We'd like to have the closing in early June. I have no idea what the timetable is in Boston.
Okay.
Well, we have a couple meetings every month, so can get you on for a signature when you're ready.
Thank you.
So, do we need to vote?
A vote on a letter of support would be good
Okay.
to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, I will make a motion that we authorize Amy to draft and send a letter of support for the Conservation Commission to jointly hold the conservation restriction on the Spruce Woods property, and that letter is to go to, a letter of support will go to our Board of Directors, our Board of Selectmen.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
Roll call.
Right, thank you for reminding me. Need to do a roll call vote because we have one voting member online, so I'll start with Mark,
Aye.
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 so that's
5.
Stan,
Yeah.
Jim,
Well,
and Wayne.
and you-
Aye, and I'm an aye as well,
So that's 5.
5 to, and 1 abstention.
and 1 abstention.
It's Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Go get
very much.
Alan. Are you good? Okay, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Thought you were in.
No worries.
So next on the agenda is a request for an amended order of conditions from the town of Harwich along Nantucket Sound, Herring River, Round Cove, Allen's Harbor, Witchmere Harbor, and Saquatucket Harbor for SE 32-2292 for an amended scope to include beaches on private property.
That's me.
Are you the,
I'm speaking on behalf of the town.
okay.
Excuse me, can I ask you a question? To interrupt? Is this working, Amy? The picture looks frozen.
Oh, our picture?
Yes. See, nothing's happening.
Well, I'm not so concerned about that. Mark or Sophia, can you hear us?
Can hear you.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna
That's fine,
represent on
thank you.
behalf of the town. If you have any questions in regards to the dredging aspect, John Rendon, our harbor master, is here for that. The town of Harwich would like to amend the language in the order of conditions that you currently have to allow for sand nourishment on private properties above mean high water and not, of course, on any native vegetation. And this is when excess sand is available due to our dredging operations of mainly channels, but sometimes we get compatible sand in the harbors as well. There are other permits that they have for this, such as the 401 Water Quality Certification, the Chapter 91 Waterways Permit, and the Army Corps all allow for this. And it's wording in our orders of conditions that say town beaches. But when you look at the plan that we permitted, it also clearly highlights private beaches in the town. So I think that was the intent. And the town is requesting that that be the case. All permits match, and we can use any excess sand that we have and keep it here in Harwich on our waterfront area. And the town, John can chime in if this is not correct, but people can go out for like a lottery for the sand, and it is much cheaper to do it this way than to haul in sand from another location. Also, the sand is really compatible because it's right here. It has to meet a lot of, criteria as far as grain size, quality, things like that in order to go on our beaches, which gets analyzed. But it is a much cheaper opportunity by far if we have excess sand to have the citizens of the town use that instead of having to buy off. If a homeowner wanted to bring in sand from a pit, a screen bank sand, then I don't think that this should necessarily cover that. This is purely for excess sand that the town has to be made available. They would still have to abide by all the conditions set forth in here in regards to notifying the commission. If we could get a list, which we normally, would at the beginning of the season, from the harbor master of who's getting sand. That would, that's very helpful. And they would have to work with us in terms of if there's any plovers available. But the town, we check all the beaches anyways, so. I would recommend you include it and have all the permits match and put the sand to use here in Harwich.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Let's go around for comments. Alan?
No comment?
No comment.
No
Jim?
comment.
Stan? Mark?
No comment.
Sophia?
No comment.
Okay, I have one question. What has happened in past years when the town has an excess of sand from dredging operations? Where has that gone?
I won't lie, there has been sand that has gone to private property owners.
I see, but it hasn't been trucked off to some other town's beach because there's extra sand?
Mr. Chairman, John Rendon, Harbor Master, members of the board. So, since I've been here, which is going on 12 years, every, 3 or 4 years, when we do multiple channels, we tend to have surplus sand. Our first priority is our public beaches, and that's what we nourish first. But when we expect that we're going to have surplus sand, we put out a public bid, and private homeowners bid on the sand, and if we can accommodate them, we will. And all the material, when we do our permitting, has been grain size tested, biological testing. We've taken samples from all the beaches, public and private, to ensure compatibility, so that a lot of agencies, a lot of costs, a lot of review has gone into the permitting. And since I've been here, I always thought, because all the coordinates for every single private and public beach are listed in our permit, that we were authorized to do that. Just of recent, I learned that there was a wording issue that needed to be resolved. So
That's why we're here.
that's why we're here.
So we're catching
We are
the
catching some errors.
order of conditions up with established practice, which is
Yes.
a good idea.
And to answer your question, if we ever did have excess sand, I would say we would stockpile it here in town. And, if we had excess after we used it, after the citizens who wanted it used it, we should keep that somewhere with DPW so we could use it if we needed to.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
In your 12 years, John, have we had excess sand in the past?
We haven't, people are starving for sand.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's-
there's a
Just
list
saying, if it
as
is,
long
it
as
should
my
stay in
arm
the town.
of people who would like to have sand, and we just don't have enough.
We're lucky enough to have sand to do this with. A lot of towns, a lot of homeowners have to truck sand in at like $40 to $45 a cubic yard.
Right.
And I believe the yard, we're seeing price of about $15 usually, right?
I mean,
A yard,
the minimum bid is what we
right,
pay for the sand.
Right.
And right now, we're paying $12 a cubic yard to the county, so it's significantly.
significant savings.
Since you haven't had any in the past, I won't even ask how the bidding would go for the private owners, so don't even bother.
It's his problem.
So do we have any other questions? Anyone online? Anyone in the room? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Sure. I will move that we approve an amendment to the order of conditions for the town of Harwich for beaches along Nantucket Sound, Herring River, Round Cove, Allen's Harbor, Wedgemere Harbor, and Saquatucket Harbor, SE 32-2292, to have the amendment also include beaches on private property.
I'll second that motion.
Further discussion? Okay, we have a roll call again. Mark?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's 6-0. Thank you. So next, we have an notice of intent for 15 Harbor Way, map 1, parcel H2, for alteration to pier and site improvements. So we're gonna follow the same general way we always do this thing. Who is the advocate for this again? Is it gonna be you, Amy, or?
John Rendon,
John is gonna speak to-
and Kevin Baruchian from GEI, I believe.
Okay, we're gonna have the advocates, and then there will be an opportunity for the commission members to ask questions and comment, and then there will be opportunities for anyone who has an interest in commenting or asking questions to do so in an orderly manner when called upon by the chair. So, who's going to be speaking first here?
It's up to you if you want to do it how you did waterways last night.
Sure, I'll start. We do have the project engineer, Kevin Baruchian from GEI Consulting is called in, and he's online and is available to address any technical questions with regards to the plan. And of course, Amy has been lockstep, a part of this project as well from the conservation standpoint. Just to give you a little history, the Wixon Dock Improvement Project, we got this approved back in May of 2019 as a project. And the intent was to use our in-house engineer. It was a relatively small scope project. If you know the Wixon Dock, which I think you all do, it's a small footprint, but it's somewhat of a challenging site. And so the focus on our project was to address three primary concerns, and that was to address the stormwater runoff that currently runs down the road into the T-base gravel lot that we have and right into the river. We have a public fixed dock that goes to a public float that you can't access currently at high tide or right around high tide because the water comes up past the entrance. So people have to walk through the water to get to the public landing and float. And we're trying to address that issue. And two, to address some erosion concerns and to stabilize the bank. Right now, as you've seen at the lot, the parking lot just runs right into the river. There is no mechanism currently to stabilizing the bank and the landing itself. So that was kind of our focus. And so you probably ask, well, why the delay? Bob Caffarelli, our old town engineer, before he completed the design and the project, he departed. And then we had a gap for a while, and we got a new engineer, Griffin Ryder, and he left shortly thereafter, and then we had another gap. And so at that point, I requested funding from administration to hire an engineer to do the plans and to get this thing going. And so GEI Consulting has been working with us for, almost a year now, trying to get this project approved, and essentially the plan is what you see today. So that kind of just gives a little bit of a background. I'll go through, we have the plans here that show the existing conditions and the plan that is proposing the new conditions. So this is the existing conditions plan. So really, one of the elements that we are doing is we're putting a Jersey barrier bulkhead. And when I say that, you think a big Jersey barrier 4 foot high. If you've been to Allen Harbor, it's very similar to what we did at Allen Harbor 5 or 6 years ago to address very much the same issue. Our parking lot just ran right into the harbor. And so we put a Jersey barrier bulkhead in. You dig down, you set the Jersey barrier down in, and then you backfill it with riprap. You have about a 6-inch reveal. It looks like a curve, but it stabilizes the bank, and then of course behind it you have riprap. And that's what we're looking to do here at this site. It's going to essentially go from the fence that abuts the Donahue property to the north, and it goes about 56 feet to the south, essentially ending where the utility pole is there. And that's the length of the bulkhead that we're working to try to stabilize that bank. In front of that, we're doing a post and rail. For a safety perspective, that's going to go essentially in front of that curb reveal of the bulkhead that you're going to see, so cars don't, drive into that area. The post and rail is very similar. If you know Saquatucket and you drive along that front road, we have a post and rail that it goes along the bulkhead. It's the exact same design concept. And that area to the north of the float has historically been part of the access to the water from people who use the landing. People walk in their dinghies or canoes or kayaks or stand-up paddle boards. But what also has happened over the time, and you can see it, it's turned into essentially a makeshift ramp where truck and trailers, with small boats and trailers, are driving down and just eating up the seabed there. That used to be salt marsh. It's not salt marsh anymore. And one of the things we're trying to do is to restore that area. And so, because we're blocking off that public access, we are providing to the south, and let me go to the plan where we're going. So essentially, this is the bulkhead I speak of, 56 feet from Donahue property down to the utility pole. And then we're providing an access for people to be able to put their dinghies in, put their kayaks or canoes to the water to the south. And we're putting a permeable path. All of this is above the high tide line. So, notice of intent obviously is required from you as the commission, but it doesn't trigger the Chapter 91. This will be with pervious pavers, so to speak, that's going to provide this 4-foot wide walkway for people to walk down to the water's edge, put their boats in. Currently, it's being used as an access for dinghies. We have a dinghy rack right there, has been there for a long time, ever since I've been here, so that area has already been used for people to launch their dinghies or small kayaks to the water's edge. So the area we're talking about already has in the past been used as access. That post and rail will continue past the bulkhead area. It'll go down towards the walkway and line the walkway to define the walkway, and again to provide a little bit of a safety factor and to define that area. Another part is this trench that we're having installed on the road, again for the purpose of trying to address stormwater runoff. That trench will be dug and put in place to capture the runoff that then filters it down into the soil before it gets to the water. I'm working with Chris Nickerson from DPW, who thinks that we can include that part of the project into a road project that they have going on. So when we bid this, it's being bid as an ad alternate because we think we're going to be able to take care of it through highway. In addition, they're looking to put another catch basin higher up onto the road as well. So both of those issues will help to address the stormwater runoff. And part of this project is looking to do some restoration and ultimately to replant, do some replanting that Amy has recommended. So that's in a nutshell the project, if I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Does Kevin want to add anything?
Nope, again, John did a great description.
So
Okay.
Amy,
Sure. Well, full disclosure, I did help prepare this with the Conservation Commission's rules and, bylaws and the Wetlands Protection Act in mind, of course. As John said, at high water, you have to walk through water to get onto the Wixon Dock. And this 25-foot additional aluminum ramp will make it so you don't have to do that. And but what that does is, right now, about 5 or 6 cars can park there. Because you're bringing that ramp out so far and we're defining the parking lot, you're gonna reduce that to probably about 2 cars that can safely park there. It's good to get cars away, gas and oil and everything else away from our river and the sensitive ecosystem. So still providing public access, and people in the neighborhood can come and use this, just a decreased amount of parking as a result. The goal was to allow use but channelize it a little bit better. It's a very small, challenging site. You have various wetland resource areas. Anything below mean high water is land containing shellfish. You have coastal beach, which is the area that is above high water, but is not dune or another feature. You have salt marsh here. You do have a little fringe dune kind of over by the dinghy dock area. Got a lot going on in a small area. What was I gonna say? So one of the things that the commission requires is for any new structure in or within the buffer to a resource area, you have to mitigate for it at a set ratio. That's what we make all the other applicants do. So in order to have the extended gangway and the low bulkhead, of which you'd have a few inches above surface, and as well as the pervious, they look like diamonds, the grass will grow in between, that walkway, they had to mitigate. And in order to meet our 3 and 4 to 1 requirement, depending on if you're in the resource or in the 50-foot buffer, that's where the 700 square feet of salt marsh restoration comes into play. Just going down there, I'm down there often, but going down there again today, salt marsh is trying to grow back into that spot, which is a good indication, because part of my concern was, we're gonna get marsh, is it gonna grow back in there, because it's been compacted so much over time. But it was encouraging to see that it is coming back on its own. So with plugging of appropriate marsh grasses, that should only aid that. The area where the pervious walkway path would be, that if you went down there today, that is, it's not American beach grass, it's just grass. And that is all above high tide as well. It just provides a little bit more of a stable surface for people to walk onto. Let's see. Let's see the rest here. A major concern, as John said, was the stormwater that comes down the road. The drain will certainly help, as well as hopefully a new catch basin farther up the street, as well as, if water does get a little bit farther down, that little bit of an edge and then the rock behind it will help prevent and filter out anything that still is trying to get into the water, because right now it just is a straight shot into the river. I think we did get a letter from the Division of Fish and Wildlife, and I put it in your Dropbox. They talked about impacts to salt marsh. The only impact to salt marsh would be minimal, which is on the south side where people currently are walking over it to get into the water on the south side for their dinghies. But we're proposing to restore over 700 new feet of regrowing salt marsh. They had concern about putting in a vertical wall. I think that they probably saw this more as a full wall, as John was saying, a 4-foot high potentially wall. It's not, it's a few inches above, and it serves to keep the cars off that area, which they shouldn't be into. And then the bedding stone on the other side would help disperse any wave or erosive forces as well. So, I mean, generally I'm not a fan of walls, but in this location I think that it is approvable and necessary. In my opinion, this meets the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaws.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I guess we'll go to comments and questions from commissioners. I'll start online with Sophia.
No questions.
Mark?
Oh, looks like it was thought out pretty well. I see it as a definite improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan?
I concur with Mark.
No comment.
Jim?
It's a great improvement, and I'm fine with it. Sounds good.
So I have one question, which is, when we were down there today, it looks like the stringers on the current pier are like barely above current high tides. I'm just wondering, in the future, presumably high tides are going to be getting higher. Is there any reason to be thinking about raising the level of that pier and doing whatever other, I mean, we were there before high tide actually, and already the float was just about at the same level as the pier. And also, like I said, the stringers probably get touched on, maybe spring high tides anyway. That presumably is going to change, and presumably one of the motivating factors here is resilience. So wouldn't you be thinking about raising that whole thing while you're at it?
If I can,
Please,
if I
yes.
understand you correctly, you're talking about the fixed dock, the
Yes.
fixed structure that's driven with piles and you
Yes.
have decking,
That,
that ramp that's going up. You're suggesting we raise it, and therefore the 25-foot gangway that we're putting on would slope down a little bit more towards
yes,
the, okay.
right.
Yeah, we hadn't thought about that. I think, we probably would have room to raise the deck without having to drive piles and disturb the bottom. I think the piles are in really good shape. I'd be interested to see what our project engineer thinks. While I probably don't have the scope, the funds to do that right now, I think potentially we could look at that. But I'd like to know what Kevin Brushin thinks of that. If he's online.
This is Kevin from GDI. It's definitely something we could consider, but during this project, we're keeping everything above the high tide line, so we don't have to go get additional permits. For us to do that, we'd have to go through the Army Corps of Chapter 91 and all the other agencies. It's definitely something we can consider as a potential condition, but it's not something we'd be able to handle this at this very moment.
Kevin, if you're not changing where the location of the pilings, you're not doing new pilings, you're just changing the elevation of the decking. You're not doing new in-water work. Why would you have to go to Chapter 91?
Because the pier is licensed, so we'd have to show the modifications, and then with the Army Corps, we'd have to show the modification of the elevation.
But maybe it could be a minor,
Similar
modification, maybe. So the commission could encourage it. You could condition that you can condition that, say, it be raised up to a foot or something like that, because that wouldn't change our scope. If it's staying in the same footprint and it's just getting a little higher in order to get a little more out of the water, because hopefully this is good for many, many years,
So
Doesn't
you,
need.
you would condition it as a condition that says that the town may,
Mm-hmm.
in the future, consider raising the level of the pier, and that wouldn't require further permitting from us.
Putting in provisions, like has to stay in the same footprint. No new no new pilings, have to use existing structure and just to get it up above the water a little more. It's something we could do.
Okay, all right, thank you. I guess now we have an opportunity for public comment, if you're
Do
ready
you
for
wanna
that.
sit here? And that way
Um,
people can come there?
So,
Yeah, yes, sir.
I would like to just
You can come next to
caution
me.
people that what we're gonna be voting on tonight is related to the conservation interests here, so please keep your comments to the point and on the point of the issue of the conservation interests here. So thank you. Please identify yourself and.
My name is Mark Kelleher, live in Gordon Ritchie Road, West Harwich.
Kathy White, Gordon Ritchie Road, West Harwich.
And when you say conservation, do you mean just the land side, or would it also include the water side of the pier?
Whole area.
The water is definitely,
Okay.
that is the resource area, so that's certainly of interest.
All right, so I'm just gonna paraphrase what John said. Everybody uses this north side here to get in the water. There's loads of kayakers that come from out of town. Most of the people here exit or enter the water right there because it's safe. It's a slope, it's a hard surface. There's very little current there. The plan right now, when you have that riprap wall there, you won't have any access to this area anymore. Between the riprap wall and the ramp, you won't be able to get in there. So you're forcing everybody over to the south side. Now, the south side is, today we had especially low tide. When you go down into that water, the first 6 feet, it's muddy, but not that bad. But you go beyond that, it's very deep water. It's very deep mud, and then even beyond that, it's deep mud. So with this plan, you're forcing everybody to that south side. It's dangerous because of that mud. You don't have a stable area to get on to kayaks, which a lot of people go there for. And even more than that, this area right here, you take a few steps and it goes immediately to 14 feet deep. So there's danger involved. We're going from a very safe entrance to the river to what's going to be a very dangerous area. A lot of kids go there and swim. They're all going to have to use that. The currents are especially strong there. I work at the ARC Pier part-time, and I've saved 2 people there who have been taken off by the currents and are just on the verge of being swept under the pier. So that's the point I want to make, that we're taking what is basically a safe entrance to the river, switching people over to what could be dangerous. And the question I'd have, Amy, is what's in it for the town? We're taking something that's, aside from the riprap wall, we're taking something that people have used traditionally for years safely. Now we're putting them in an area that really jeopardizes people, and I'm very concerned about young people going in there with the current. So that's all I wanted to say.
And I'll just add, I've been in this neighborhood for over 60 years. I know this place like the back of my hand, and I can tell you that north side that everyone traverses has been all my life. It's always sandy. It's been like a beach. And I recall as a kid, before that even that house was there, it was a sandy beach. We'd play on the beach. We'd go in the water there. The other side, the south side, where they're directing everybody per this plan, is muck and mud. I've been stuck in it. I just don't go in that side. So many people don't. Many of the people, although the dinghy tie up is there, drag their dinghies over to the north side to bring them into the water. The only people that don't do that have lug-soled boots, like my husband has, and they can drag them in on the south side. You took a day trip there today, but in all conditions, it can be extremely treacherous to just, I've been stuck that I can't even move in it. I can't even imagine what a young kid would, or just getting in and out of a kayak, how difficult it would be. It's just impossible. However, the north side is all sand, and it's a smooth, level slope, and the current is buffeted by the bulkhead of the, not the direct abutter, but the abutter beyond that, because it jogs out. And that kind of breaks the current. So that little strip in the north, you can get into the water safely, and you're not right into the current of that river. That current, according to the harbor master notes, can exceed 3 knots, and it's a velocity zone. And, so when you go in on that south side, it sucks you right up. And if the tide's going out, you get sucked underneath the dock at the ARC. If the tide's coming in, you get sucked under the Wixon dock. We've seen it happen. I've seen it all my life. And so, I just think that this plan, the Wixon family gave this to the citizens of the town of Harwich. And, you're basically denying the citizens safe access to the water on foot by doing this, this extreme a measure and blocking off that north access. Could there be something like a small notch in the north side where at least a car's not going to get through, but a person could, just to make, for safety's sake? Because I hate to think if someone does have, my husband saved 2 people the last year, and if he hadn't been there, or as this goes forward, we as neighbors and people who've been there a long time know the danger of that place. The town's getting itself into a liability situation. That's all I can say by changing this route. And I don't understand what's in it for the town to block complete access, safe access on foot into that north side and direct everyone to the south. It just doesn't make sense. And that is all marsh grass over there. You have people trampling through it. So you're planting more grass on the north side, which, as I recall in my 60-plus years, that was never full of seagrass. It was always a sandy beach. And the other side was all grass. So now you're going to have people trampling through the south side, where there is grass, and then taking away their access on the north, and then planting grass on the north. It just doesn't really compute.
So I'm just going to say thank you, but I have to comment that it's the issue, the public safety issues you're raising here. I understand they're deep concerns of yours, but they're not in our jurisdiction. So you've had your opportunity. I assume you've had the opportunity to air these concerns in other forums. I don't want to spend a lot of time tonight airing these concerns. If other people want to come forward and air the same concerns, I'll give them a few minutes here, but we can't spend the whole meeting because we can't make a ruling based on these public safety concerns. That's for other people in town. What we're here to do is determine whether what the town is asking to do complies with Wetlands Protection Act rules and regulations at the state and town level. That's the thing before us, and what I would like to do is keep this meeting to discussing that topic, not the public safety concerns. So I would ask that if other people want to come up and air the same concerns, you be very brief. And I will even cut people off if it goes on for too long, because it's not really relevant to what we're doing tonight. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's the way this works. So,
Okay, well,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So we just
So who's
had
next? Who else, anyone else in the room who has questions? Yes, sir. I will get people online eventually.
Robert Thomason, and I have concerns of the similar what Kathy said about destroying one section of marsh to try and grow marsh in another section. It seems counterintuitive, and I was down there today. The section where this path is going down is very thick, old peat that's been there probably thousands of years. And above it is very well-established coastal bank growth that is holding its own very well. I don't see any reason to trample that down and then try to get grass to grow in this sandy area that people have referred to as being an access point. I think that the stormwater catch is a very good idea, but I don't think it's really well thought out for the situation, because the groundwater is up very high here, and even if you put a trench in with gravel, it's only going to go down so far till it reaches maximum saturation, and it's just going to come back out. It'll probably fill up with sand on a regular basis as well. It's good intentions, but when I first saw this, I had the impression that this barrier was to help prevent the water from going down, but it's more of an obstacle to get into the water or to cross it, and it prevents people's access. So I think it's just the wrong material for that situation. There's also
Do you have alternate suggestions?
well, to be
What-
honest
what
with
do you
you, I
think should
don't.
be
I
done?
was just aware of this recently, and I think it would be important to have other people be aware of what the town is trying to do and have input from the citizens in the area and the people that have used it on a regular basis. And as people have said, this was donated to the town by the Wixons for general public use. And to me, if you put up Jersey barriers, even if they're only 6 inches high, and riprap beyond it, that shouts out, do not cross, don't come here. It's very uninviting. You can't go across that with bare feet on those sharp rocks. So I think that we're losing the whole gist of what this was all about. I mean, I can see what's going to happen is people are going to come in here, swim up here, and then they're going to try to cross over this dock to get over this riprap somehow. Because as people said, this is very strong currents and very dangerous. So that's all I really have to say. I hope you consider. The other thing I noticed last night at our meeting is it seems as there's a neighbor who's very adamant about this, and he seems to be driving this whole issue with his lawyers. And it's almost like has to be done or I'm going to be upset. And I think that's really wrong. I think that, here's a guy that lives there and doesn't like people using the public way. But it belongs to us, and we're the taxpayers, and we should be able to use it. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. So do we have anyone else in the room who wishes to speak on
I
this?
just have one comment. Robert
Please
Johnson.
step up to the microphone.
Robert Johnson, I live on Riverside Drive. I've been using this dock for forever. Been 50 years on the river anyways, plus. This north side of the dock is being described as a restoration of the marsh. And as Kathy White said, it was never fully marshed in to where the dock was. And to restore something that was never there and then restrict access to it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay,
That's all I
thank
got.
you. Anyone else in the room?
I think I'll just, real quickly, I'm just gonna ask John, maybe he knows the answer. My name is Peter Shankman. Is the purpose to not have anybody get in on the north side by putting the riprap wall there? Is that the purpose of putting it there, aside from the runoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to provide the access to the water on the south side so that we can reestablish that area of salt marsh.
Reestablish the north side.
Because we have, as Amy said, because of what we're doing as far as trying, all the efforts we're trying to do to stabilize that landing,
I got it.
preventing everything from just washing into the river and providing safe access by allowing people to be able to get to the public float, which still people certainly can do that.
Yep.
We're not taking the public's ability to utilize the Wixon dock.
I got it. So just one
We're
question.
improving the access to do that.
I got it.
Instead of having to trudge through water to get there. And we're providing a safe access on the south side to get to the water's edge, something that people, since I've been here, have been utilizing to row their dinghies out to get to their moorings.
I think all of those are good ideas. I think giving the south side some access is a good idea. Even if it's trampling grass, I won't waste anybody's time, it's a good idea. It's also a good idea to put the ramp so some people who don't want to walk through water can get up to the dock. I was just going to ask, if you put this new ramp in and you walk to the bottom of the old ramp that's extended.
The wooden part.
The wooden one, and you're up on that. So you're on the northwest corner of that ramp. Would there be any objection, or would it be not possible, to put a little access there to drop down onto the north side? So you're already on the east side of the riprap wall. You don't have to climb over it. Is that some sort of a compromise, or is that not anything that could be done? That's the only question I would have.
Could you point out on there where you're thinking?
Where's the ramp?
So this is the aluminum ramp.
Okay, so if this is the aluminum ramp and this is the old wooden ramp.
Yes.
If you got up here, you're only about a foot above the water. Almost no water is there. Would there be any way right there, which would, I think, make a lot of people a little more relaxed, to just get even as wide as a doorway, like 3 feet, right here, to just drop down into that water, hugging, just north of the ramp, so you're not disturbing any grass that you want to plant on the north corner abutting his property. Is that something that could be done, or is that impossible? That would certainly help people get in. They could even bring their kayaks up the ramp and just put it right down there. If they want to go on the south side with the extra access, that would be great. Is that something that could be considered, or is that not possible? And I'll just sit back and you guys can respond.
You want to speak to that? Go ahead.
As far as for conservation perspective, I think that's something that we can consider and would be a reasonable request, as long as you are seaward of the grass that we are proposing to allow regrow, because I was down there again today and it is regrowing. But just allowed, as long as it was seaward of that and really right up against the dock, I don't see a huge issue.
Maybe
if
we
it's
can ask
feasible
Kevin to
to do.
comment, the engineer. I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin, do you? Where are you? Oh,
Yeah,
there.
this is Kevin from GDI. So we discussed a similar situation last evening as well to this, I agreed to the same request, and enabled to do that, the work would still be outshore of the high water mark, which would trigger additional permitting. It's definitely something that could be done. However, to do that, we'd have to put some sort of a stair or some access point down to the beach level, and then that would trigger additional permits, as well as that would impact our ability to include some of that area as a replenishment, or as I said, the renourishment piece of it, because we wouldn't be able to account for all that to be replenished on the basis that we would have additional foot traffic on that side, similar to what's happening now.
If they
So
were,
it's something we'd have to talk through.
I think he's confused.
So,
Can I?
yes, please.
Kevin, I think it's a little bit of a misunderstanding here. So what they're asking for would be an opening in the fixed pier seaward of where the mitigation would go. And if they were to do, so the planting, the salt marsh restoration would be to the west of where you could potentially put an opening in. I don't know if a ladder, and I'm not as familiar with the other levels of permitting as you are, but if there was just an opening with some sort of access, I don't know, if it would trigger other things.
I guess the long and short of it is it's definitely something that could be considered. It would have to be considered in addition to, you know, the potential that you guys raised earlier of raising the pier, what
Okay.
impacts that would have to the overall project. I don't think it's anything that we would be opposed to. It's definitely something we could incorporate, but it's a matter of, you know, I guess I'd be willing to have it as a condition for something for us to review, but I don't think it's something that we could do this very minute without
Okay.
looking at the other impacts associated with it. Because I honestly, I can't see what you guys are seeing at the moment. 'Cause
Sure.
For some reason, my screen is dark. But it's definitely something I could talk through with you and John at a later date.
Excuse me, it just seems like it would relieve a lot of these people's concerns, and it might be a great compromise. You'd still get your riprap wall, you'd still get the, you know, the runoff stop, you'd get the other path.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you
Thank you.
should come up.
That's all right. I don't want to.
So we have a quick technical issue.
Oh,
So they can hear us, but we are
oh,
frozen.
we're still frozen.
And we can't,
Oh, boy.
there may be an internet issue. So Caleb is coming over right now. So they can hear us, we can hear them. We're still good to go. But there's
Okay,
No picture.
well,
there's
I'm
no
gonna,
picture.
I'm gonna ask a question just about this topic, which is looking at the plan. The salt marsh restoration area is, I don't know where the high and low tide lines are here. They're not clearly marked on this plan, but it's,
They're down here.
they appear to be, the restoration area appears to be in the intertidal area, more towards high tide.
Yes.
Whereas there's a much bigger area labeled as salt marsh, which would be impacted by foot traffic down that north side of the bridge, right? I mean,
It already is.
right. So, but whatever it is, however many square feet of restoration we're talking
Yeah.
about, would not be. Oh, it's back.
We still,
No,
they,
it's not.
no,
No,
it's
it's
not.
frozen. It's been that
Frozen.
way.
It's been that way for a while.
Carry on, don't wait me.
Uh-huh.
Alright. We're still on, so.
Okay, so, if we have covered everybody's comments in the room, I would like to go to people online. Even though we seem to be having a video problem, but let's just move forward. I would please caution people online, again, to keep in mind that the issue before us are the conservation interests here, applicability of wetland-related rules and regulations here. Please keep your comments brief and to the point. So, please, John Donahue, please state your name, and you have the
John
floor.
Donahue, I am the, at 17 Harbor Way. I've been there since 1995. I spend all summers there, and have, with one exception, since that time. The front, I don't know where to start here, there's so many things, but the trying to stay in the conservation realm, I have erosion on my property that, in my opinion, is a direct result of the traffic up and down that north side, okay? That's number one. I think the front of my property is all recovered salt marsh. When I bought the property, the previous owner had been putting sand there, and it was a beach. Over time, I realized I was not allowed to re-nourish that without water permits. and I let the salt marsh come back. So within that period of time, I would have to say 10 to 12 years or less, that has grown across from the direction of that area, across my entire intertidal lands to the northern neighbor's boundary. Okay, I've seen the salt marsh trying to recover there, and then someone will drive a truck over it, including some of the people that are in the room. So most of those people in the dinghies, I think there's a limited amount of dinghies there, are using that spot that's currently there, and not dragging them, 30 and 40 feet over to the other side. And I don't see any problem with those, and I have video and photographic proof if anybody wants that, including the people in the room. So I think I don't understand this. Most of the people that enter the water to swim, including Mr. Shankman who speaks, dive off the float. And they float down the river on the outgoing tide, get out on the rocks, which I've heard was some kind of dangerous thing, but everybody's crawling over those rocks, including other speakers in there, to get out of the river or go into the river at the incoming tides. I went and analyzed the shore. I videotaped myself walking down there at low tide, and I swam out. I see no problem with the way the river is constructed. It is the same exact river, 20 feet away, and it also drops off, okay, to 14 feet there, okay. So the current runs pretty much from my star outside of that in the river, across the float, and down through the arc pilings. Okay, and I have also rescued people on the north side, upside down in kayaks pinned against the float. So if we want to talk danger, it's on maybe on both sides, but as far as the town property, it's on the north side. Okay, the arc is not the responsibility and liability of the town of Summer Extract in there, nor is the current, I believe. So if you put a sign up there saying swift current, this may solve that issue. I have talked to Amy, I think, probably 5 or 6 years about the erosion, and I've replaced, I don't know how to calculate this in whatever terms they are, but approximately on my eastern corner, at least 10 feet by 3 feet of my property has gone away from that ramp going down. I watched them put that dock in, and it's lost a lot of height there, okay? And that's pretty much being trampled along with the oil and everything else that's going into the river. So I'm 100% for this plan. I had my own engineer look at it from my property perspective. His only comment was to make sure the wall went all the way across to my property, and not have notches in there, because you will have end around water potentially, and people trampling that bank, because there's no respect for any of that. Having this all in one area and driving the traffic over into that area is a perfect solution, in my opinion. As far as me being a neighbor who started all this, I didn't start it all. You're looking at the people who started in speaking there.
Okay,
now.
let's
Now
not,
they
please,
don't like the
please,
solution.
sir, please, do not get personal. Let's not have a
I'm not,
personal.
I'm just saying that.
Let's
I'm
not
refuting-
have, please, just keep it to the issues, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So anyway, I don't have lawyers on this, and there's a Chapter 91 regulation that requires a town, and it's abutting, if it's causing erosion to a resident such as myself, they have to address it. That's all I'm asking for. And I think this addresses it, and, there was quick claim deed to the town for this property that commercial fishermen followed by pleasure craft, and it services the mooring field. I'm happy with all of those solutions. And if people want to swim, they're also happy with that. I don't care about all of that. I'm not trying to prevent people from stopping that. And with without getting personal, I can say there's a lot of people who don't want people down there. So I'm
Okay.
fine. I've dealt with it for 28 years. I didn't pack up and leave. I believe Amy and John have worked their butts off for this, and with very minimal resources in the town, and I think we should, move on and solve this problem for once and for all. And the other people that don't like the parking there, we've also, it looks like addressed that in this plan, so that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Donahue. Do we have, do you have a letter you want to read into the record?
Yeah,
Amy?
but if you want to take other
Well, I want to see if there's anyone else
online, I'll give this to you
who
for the
has anything
record.
to say. Anyone? I don't see anybody. If anyone else wants to chime in, we'll give you one more chance, so go ahead, Amy.
You'd like me to, so, the abutter to the south, Mr. Zaretti, who owns, the shellfish, facility, wrote a letter in. He submits as public record for this hearing, as he's not able to attend. 1, I am in full support of the proposed project and uses for 15 Harbor Way. 2, as a registered professional engineer with a BS in civil engineering and an MS in environmental engineering, I have reviewed the plans, and in my professional opinion, the proposed site improvements will be of great environmental benefit and improvement to the existing conditions and problems currently associated with this site. 3, if a temporary condition arises that requires the use of my parking lot during construction process for logistical purposes, such as limited parking, material storage, I will also support this request if needed by the town officials. Note, please submit this email as a formal letter of support for the project into the public comments and minutes and records of the public hearing scheduled for April 20th, 2023 in my absence. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments or within, do not hesitate to contact me. Respectfully submitted, Fran Zaret, PE, Direct Abutter.
Thank you. Anything else? Do we have any others? Do any of the commissioners wish to make any further comments or ask any further questions? Hearing none. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I will move that we approve the notice of intent for the town of Harwich, 15 Harbor Way, map 1, parcel H2.
I second it.
Okay, further discussion? There was talk about a condition allowing for the raising of the decking of the dock. Do you want to include that in your motion? I would.
If you would like me to amend my motion to
I'm
include that.
asking that you amend your motion to include the possibility of raising.
And I have
deck.
no objection to that amendment, so I will amend my motion.
And I'll second.
Further discussion? Okay, we're going to do a roll call again, starting with Mark.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
Stan is an aye.
Aye.
Jim is an aye. Wayne is an aye.
No, Alan, no.
Alan is no. I am an aye. So that's 5-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all for coming and bearing with us.
Commission, this is Kevin from GEI. I just want to let you know your video feed is active, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Do you need me for the
Thank you.
Do you need me for the hearing?
I can let you know some other time. Thank you. Go home, relax.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 46 Indian Trail, map 34, parcel K3-2, for a new single-family dwelling and appurtenances.
Mr. Chairman, there were some, as a result of my comments, which I sent yesterday to Mr. Healy of the BST Group, he made some changes to the plans. He emailed them earlier, but I did ask him to bring them. Is that okay if I pass them out?
Please do. And so, are there copies on Dropbox?
There are, yep.
So Mark and Sophia can.
They were
Indian
also,
Trail.
I think they were also emailed, but they are
okay.
definitely in Dropbox as well.
So this packet we got here, we just put
This is a new
Throw
plan.
this plan, put this off to the
Yeah,
side.
well, I mean, unless you disagree with my comments, but I thought that I was representing you.
For the record, I agree with the majority of Amy's comments.
Majority.
But she hasn't made any.
So, there was one question that I would like to discuss with both. But before we start,
First.
for the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group. I'm representing the owners of the property and the applicant here, Steve Balboa of Sandala, who is with us online if we need to discuss anything with them.
Okay.
The property out here is a wooded lot. It's vacant at the moment, and we are looking to put in a single-family home. For those of you who've been able to get out there, we staked out the location of the house, the hay bales, and tried to identify everything that the commission would need to see in their site walk. So hopefully you've been able to do that. This property has been before you a couple of different times over the last number of years, and we are looking to do, again, just a single-family home. But before we get into the single-family home, there is the conservation restriction that was agreed to by the Conservation Commission a few years ago. When we went out to the site, we found a difference between ourselves and our wetland environmentalist and the previous wetland person who delineated the lines. As a result of finding something different, we asked Amy to come out and walk the site with us to show her the areas that we disagreed with the previous consultant. One of the areas specifically was that the previous consultant had the two wetlands joined together, so it was one big wetland. But to us, it was obvious in the field that there was quite a difference in elevation, and the wetlands did not join. So we asked Amy to walk the line with us, and I believe Amy can confirm, but there is no line that connects both wetlands. There are two separate entities. The wetland to the west is one of the wetlands, and in the wetland to the north is both a wetland and a vernal pool, certified vernal pool. So we're looking to put in this single-family home, and to do that, we want to ask the Commission tonight if we could modify the previous conservation restricted limit, because the previous restriction was based on the wetland being joined together, and that's just not the case. So we're looking to see the modification, show a modification. What I did was, the green line that is on the property is the previous conservation restriction line. The blue line that's on the property is what I'm looking to do for a modified conservation restriction line, which you'll see is a substantial amount of the lot. It's over 3/4 of the lot area, the limits of the conservation restriction that we're proposing. The plan that we had submitted a couple of weeks ago and the plan we submitted today, the primary difference is that based on Amy's comments, we were able to move the house to the north a little bit. We rotated the house a little bit. We were able to reduce the amount of disturbance on the southerly side to pull the line back from the wetland site there to increase the distance of our clearing from the wetlands, which did an overall reduce the disturbance of the building within the 100-foot buffer, and also reduce the amount of disturbance within the 100-foot buffer. And well, earlier when I said that I agreed with Amy in almost everything that she had said, the one item was that we had originally proposed an 80-foot restricted area between ourselves and the vernal pool. The building itself was outside the 100-foot, and we were looking to do 20 feet of clearing along that area. Amy had mentioned the possibility of moving that to a 90-foot buffer, and on the plan I've shown an 85-foot buffer. The reason for that is purely because of there's some large trees in that area, and because our house is pretty close, we were just concerned about the canopies of the trees being over the top of the house. Now, if the Commission were to see favourably on this, my client doesn't have a problem putting in a 90-foot conservation restricted area if we could remove a few of the trees with the canopies that come over the top. So if that was something the commission was agreeable to, we'd be glad to do that particular item. But the tree canopy is so close to the building, that is our concern in that area. It is a fully compliant Title V. The groundwater is high out there, so we have an elevated septic system, but it will be encompassed in such a way that it's not standing out from in the street when you go by. We have proposed 6x6 wooden markers along the conservation restriction line. You see those are the black squares. They were all along the straw wattle line, and as a permanent marker to identify the limits of where the homeowner can walk in. And other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you. Amy?
Before I start on my comments, I did have the pleasure of speaking with the abutter, the Clintons on the south side,
Yes.
southwest side. And he was not able to join this evening, and just asked me to relay his concerns. He just wants to make sure that whatever is happening on this property is not gonna have an adverse impact to the water table over on his property. His house is high, a little bit higher up on the hill here. But he's, with the high water table, and he was curious, where did you find water when you dug the test pits? Do you know I know that's not really a conservation question.
We found approximately 6 feet down.
Okay.
Was the observed water, but there is a Cape Cod Commission adjustment for the area,
Yeah.
which adjusted it substantially by 4 feet.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we have our septic system
Okay.
basically elevated above the existing grade.
What I had told him was essentially where the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland is, that abuts his property, that's where, that's groundwater right there, is elevation 13 to 14. So that makes sense if you're saying it's about 6 feet down, because you have an elevation of roughly 18 to 19 up where your leach is, so.
Right, and our adjusted groundwater elevation was slightly higher than the wetland line, so we
Right.
feel it's conservative. Cape Cod
Yeah.
Commission generally puts in 1 extra foot of conservative
Yeah.
into their adjustment. So we found it to be very conservative with using the Cape Cod Commission adjustment.
Yeah. I mentioned to the gentleman that they're really only adding about a foot, if that, of fill up near the septic area here. And that he's actually higher up, because there's a 20-foot contour that kind of comes in here too. So he wants to make sure there's not gonna, what you're proposing by digging in this, new foundation, that it's not gonna displace additional water.
I don't believe so, because when you design a foundation, we design it to be above the groundwater.
Right.
So we brought in 1.5 feet safety, so the bottom of our slab is 1.5 feet above the groundwater. So any excavation we do isn't going to interfere with the groundwater elevation itself. So that should not be an issue.
Thank you. And as for my comments, thank you for taking my comments into consideration on a lot where I would consider this a mitigation constraint, because it's a lot that's in very pristine condition. There's not a lot of invasives. There's no disturbance. It's a beautiful lot. The first thing we do is minimize disturbance before we talk about mitigation. So in an effort to minimize that, the comments I made were to shift and rotate to reduce some of the, but I think you said 190-ish square feet of structure roughly.
Yes.
Was able to be removed from the 100-foot buffer by doing that. They brought in the line in terms of, especially from the certified vernal pool on the north side. I would be comfortable with a 90-foot buffer, but allowing with my, during an on-site, permission to remove selected trees, or the tree, between the 80 and 100 foot, that have a canopy concern. So, and then our typical conditions about roof runoff going into dry wells. I see you already have dry wells listed here. I agree with the wetland line, and I walked a couple of the commission members, I walked the lines with them today, and it is very clear that they do not connect, or if they do, it's way the heck away, but not anywhere within the scope. And then if you look at the plans, it kind of makes perfect sense, because your wetland wetlands typically follow contours, roughly. And this wetland here on the north side follows about a 13-foot contour, and this wetland here on the south side between a 13 and a 14. And the area where the previous plan showed the wetlands connecting at about elevations 16 and 17, which just does not happen. So I agree with the new wetland lines, and as currently proposed, I would, with the new plan, I would recommend approval. With the conservation restriction, with that line moving to 90 with the condition that we put on it.
Thank you, Amy. So let's start with Alan. Do you have comments or questions?
No comments.
Wayne?
No comment.
No comment.
Jim? Stan?
No comments.
Mark?
No comments, thank you.
Sophia?
No comment, thank you.
Okay. So I don't really have any comments, but I was looking for how, do we have somewhere the previous plan that showed the
I put it in Dropbox this afternoon.
All right, I guess it's not really necessary to proceed.
I didn't bring it with me, but I did put it in Dropbox.
I don't have any other questions or comments, so, anybody online have any questions or comments? No one in the room, other than us commissioners, so do we have a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for 46 Indian Trail, map 32, parcel K3-2, and we approve the relocation of the conservation restriction to a 90-foot buffer with the ability to remove trees which might overhang the proposed dwelling.
I'll second that motion.
Amy?
Just want to make it clear, it's 90 feet on the north side.
Okay, 90 feet. I'll amend my motion to make it 90 feet on the north side.
Thank you.
I'll second that amendment.
Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor by roll call, Mark?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Wayne? Alan? And I'm an aye, so that's
6.
6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. Thank you, Amy.
I'm just gonna open the curtains, get some air flowing here. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
I hadn't opened them earlier because the sun was like right there.
A little toasty.
It's getting warm.
Just get me 3, full size, within a week, well, Wednesday. Thanks.
What happens, do we have to come back for a meeting?
No, I'll draft the orders. If you want me to send you the draft to review, I'm happy to. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have a request for a determination of applicability for 2173 Route 28, Head of the Bay Road, map 115, parcel S1-3 for pruning. So who do we have? Someone online, I assume, to speak to this?
Hi, this is, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, this is Steve LeBrand from Wilkinson. This is to address some pruning that has been taking place over time along Round Cove. And it came up when we were permitting some other work at Wauquasit. And we met with Amy out there on site to hopefully come to a good solution for what can take place just one time for this year. And then going forward, another permit will be needed if any more work is to be done in that area.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you have comments?
Sure. As Mr. LeBranch said, that this came to light during more recent permitting for something else on the property, and that the Wacquaset's frontage on Round Cove has been historically been getting cut without permit due to timing, and it's what I suggested was that they file an RDA to be able to do corrective pruning and flush cutting of invasives. They're just going to grow back, but doing it for this year, which will help maintain their view and start getting the plants a little healthier, the desirable plants. While in the next year, the Wacquaset works on a holistic bank management plan. So my recommendation is a 1-year determination of applicability. They're typically 3 years. But this is a 1-year determination to get them through this year, allow them to do some pruning while working towards a comprehensive plan for that area.
Okay. Do we have any comments, questions? Sophia?
No questions. I think this sounds like a good long-term and short-term plan. Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Mark?
No remarks, thank you.
Stan?
No comment.
Jim?
Comments?
No
Wayne?
comment.
Alan?
No comment.
I have I have one question. Which is, I don't know whether Wilkinson is involved in weekly lawn maintenance there, but it looked awfully green there. I'm just, I guess, just making the statement that on the last permitting that we did, 2 months ago or something, there was a condition for no fertilizer at all of any sort, and I just want to emphasize that still holds. It's not clear whether the grass is being fed and or otherwise treated there right now.
Okay.
That's not something that we would be doing, but I can ask about it.
Yeah, please just pass that along. So other than that, I have nothing. So
Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot that.
Hearing no more comments, Jim?
Okay, I will make a motion. I move that we approve a 1-year determination of applicability for 2173 Route 28, Head of the Bay Road, map 115, parcel S1-3.
Second it.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, starting with you, Mark.
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Alan? And I'm an aye. That's 6-0. All right. What do we have next?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have a request for determination of applicability for 4 Harbor Road, map 8, parcel S4, for replacing a pier. Don, you have the floor.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. Don Monroe for Stonehenge Yacht Club. The yacht club's small dock, portions of it have some broken members, and portions of it have splintering going on, and piles have some checking going on. So they'd like to replace the small portion. I can share my screen if you want, so I can just show you quickly if that's what you'd like.
Sure. Do you need me, can you just do that, or do you need me to go, let you do it?
I think I can do it. Let's
Yep,
just see
you
what
are.
happens here.
We're good. You got it.
Okay, can you see that? I made it larger. Yep, so let me show you the existing bigger picture. Here's the yacht club's, this is the sailing yacht club's float system. And this is the access. It actually has a little L here, but it goes right along the bulkhead and then goes goes out, and then there's a ramp that goes down to the floats. Nothing's being done to the floats, nothing's being done to the ramp. And then I'll show you a zoomed up section. We're not really doing anything on this section right here. It's merely this part right here. And I'll show you a photograph of that section. If I can get the photograph up here. So you can see this member, can you see the photograph?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so see this member here is broken. Then there's another shot that I can show you right. Pardon me while I flip through the photographs to get you a better view. Wait a minute, sorry. There's a couple other sections that are pretty broken. Yeah, let me open that up bigger. As you can see right here, this is one of the yokes, the bolt showing, the yokes are pretty dilapidated. The hardware is all pretty rusted. The members are starting to get rotted, and then you can see the checking that's going on. So this is really just a replacement in kind. I talked to John Rendell. He didn't see the need to go to waterways because we're not adding any members, changing any members. Any piles that need to be replaced will be green heart piles replaced in the same footprint. And then Amy raised the question about the decking. The current decking is really, doesn't have the proper spacing between planks, so we'll make sure that they're the 3/4 inch spacing. And that's basically what we're looking for the RDA for, is to replace this in kind. I always have a hard time stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right here, I think. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Amy?
I would recommend approval with a -2 determination, conditions that there be a siltation boom in the water during any new pile driving, even if it's in the same place, just potential silt producing activity. And I can't remember the typical, because it was an RDA, you didn't file with Fish and Wildlife, right? So I was thinking of the time of year restriction we typically have in Witchmere Harbor for pile work. I could just go back to another application and look at that, but I would say an applicable time of year restriction that they would typically put on for pile work should apply here as well, because you're essentially driving new piles.
Yeah, through the chair, I believe that's not supposed to do anything after May 15th, I think, and up to, but Amy, you can check that, I think,
Yeah.
up to January 15th.
I think it's January 15th to May 15th. I think you're right.
Yeah, that's when you can do the work, so, yeah.
I'll check it, but I would recommend that we'll put that condition on there like we do
Yes.
for other ones.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay?
I'm good.
Alan?
No comment, sounds simple, huh?
No
Wayne?
comment. No comment.
Jim? Stan? Mark?
No comments.
Sophia?
No comment.
Okay, well, I have the same question I had at Wixon. You're showing mean high water just touching the bottom of the stringers at the outer portion of the pier. Why wouldn't you be raising that right now?
I believe we will be raising it. We don't show that. But I think that's a valid point. So,
I mean, if they wanted
let's
to,
talk go ahead.
say if you wanted to, I think we could approve contingent upon that and he could just get us a revised plan. But
Yeah, we can amend the section view of the plan so that it
Yeah.
shows an elevation that would work in that location. You gotta remember, there's the bulkhead's right there, and
Yeah.
I believe most of the decking is close to the elevation of the bulkhead.
yeah,
So we have to at least make the adjustment based on a field elevation of the
Yeah.
bulkhead itself, so we don't go above the bulkhead, because then it would require additional work beyond an RDA, I think, to work the access out.
Well, if you just needed to do a step or something or two, I don't think that would be out of line.
Yeah, I think there's room to do that, I mean, that's what I'm alluding
Yeah.
to, so we work with what we have there, figure it so it's higher.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a question?
Don, at the previous hearing, they had some, they couldn't modify it because of their permit.
Chapter 91.
How come you wouldn't have those same issues?
Because if you do work within the existing footprint, the DEP, Division of Waterways, doesn't mind elevation changes. So that's the answer to that.
Okay, and their footprint would be different than what they were doing?
No,
Yeah,
so
no change in
with the other one, the Wixon, we were talking about two things. One, just the raising of the decking, which I don't think would, as long as you're not changing footprint. If you were to put like a stair or a access down, that might, but just the simple raising of the decking shouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and if it tripped anything, it would be a minor modification, which is a letter to the
Right.
state engineer.
Yeah.
But we don't, I checked with Brendan on these, and
Yeah.
we just did 2 and 4 lanes, and there really isn't any need for the minor mod.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
just to follow up on that, if the decking is now pretty much at or near the top of the bulkhead, isn't there a flooding problem there at king tides or whatever? Does it come over the top of the bulkhead?
I think the parking lot actually, in some
That's what I
cases,
thought,
when the
yeah.
tide's high enough, even the Harwich boatyard suffers
Yeah, I've seen it.
some elevation issues during higher tides, so we're kind of stuck with that.
Yeah.
It's not the only marina on the Cape that suffers that. Nauset Marine has that issue in Orleans, so they just have to work around, they don't work on those days, evidently. They don't use the facility. Even Allen Harbor Marina's parking lot can go underwater on a king tide. So most of the structures that are built, including the Allen Harbor Marina, they're built to withstand that based on how the piles are driven, so that there's no lifting that would cause issues. As far as the parking lots though and the bulkheads, you can't really do much about it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further from anybody?
Okay, before I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, I just want a clarification. Are we conditioning this motion on the submission of a revised plan to show a increased elevation of the decking?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'd be in agreement with that, yes. Okay, then I am happy to make a motion.
Good.
I move that we approve the determination of applicability for 4 Harbor Road, map 8, parcel S4, subject to the applicant submitting a revised plan showing the increased elevation of the decking on the dock.
Second that motion.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, starting with Alan?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Jim?
All right.
Mark?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's 6-0.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don.
Good night.
Night.
Okay. Now we have 4 orders of conditions. I have one.
I made your change.
Okay.
And I fixed it on Dropbox because you're right, 58 Chase Street didn't have a dock at the end, so it didn't know how to open it. I did fix that, but I also printed them off if people wanted me to read them. But for 16, I think we should do them separate.
Okay.
It won't take too
So,
long.
any comments on 16 Old Coach Lane? Anyone? Have we all reviewed it? Anybody not ready to vote on it? Hearing none.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 16 Old Coach Lane, map 112, parcel A6-28.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor, starting with Mark. Stan.
Aye.
Jim.
Even though I made the motion, I'm going to abstain.
Oh, okay. Wayne.
Aye.
Alan.
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that's 5-4, 1 abstention.
501.
501, okay. So next is 5 Panorama Point Drive, map 91, parcel G2-7. Everyone had a chance to review?
I made the change that the typo error that I had made, I fixed that.
Well, I haven't actually looked at that, I suppose.
It just reads, the owner shall receive permission from Mass DMF and while under the Mass Endangered Species Act prior to work being done. I had put a couple extra words in there.
Okay. That's good. Go ahead.
No comment.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 5 Panorama Point Drive, map 91, parcel G2-7.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Aye.
Wayne. Alan.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Next is 58 Chase Street, map 4, parcel E2-E. That, I believe, was the one that had to have a repair in the,
Replacement of the
Document.
bulkhead, yeah.
no,
Oh,
the
oh.
document was it needed to be fixed before it was accessible online. But it is accessible online now.
If anybody wants me to read through it, I can.
Anyone need any more time?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 58 Chase Street, map 4, parcel E2-B.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor, Alan.
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, okay, so that's 6-0. And finally, 20 Brooks Road, map 5, parcel K1-A5. Again, anyone need more time? Okay, hearing none.
I'll make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 20 Brooks Road, map 5, parcel K1-A5.
I'll second that motion.
All those, well, any discussion? No, so. Mark, all those in favor, Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Wayne. Alan.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's 6 and not. 6 not.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next we have 2 things under discussion and possible vote. Herring River Study, request for proposals.
I'm not prepared to go through the comments from the professionals that we had, and I know Brad wanted more time to look at them too.
Yes, that'd be good.
Those are in Dropbox. We have a light agenda, it looks like, next meeting. So we'll all be very prepped for that.
Okay.
Keep in mind, our next meeting is actually not until May 10th
Right.
because of town meeting. So
Right.
in case town meeting goes 3 nights, we can't, we
Yeah.
put it off a week. Plus, even if it did go 3 nights, do we really want to come after, after a couple nights of town meeting? There are some interesting articles for you on there. So, we'll put that on May 10th. I apologize. We're, as you know, we're, a staff of 1 right now, so.
When's
the new person gonna start working?
Supposedly May 1st, but what I'm not gonna completely leave the building department in the lurch, so there's gonna be a little transition period for, and obviously a big learning curve, so. But we're excited. She's gonna be a good addition.
Who is it?
It's Leisha McKenna, who is the executive assistant in building right now, and has a lot of good permitting background, but also has a ton of outdoor education and restoration experience. So,
Does
it's a
the
really-
building department have a replacement yet?
they put the internal application in, but I don't know yet. So there's gonna be a little bit of a delay, and I don't wanna, rob them.
Yeah.
So, we're doing our best.
There you go. That's all you can do.
Okay, so Bell's Neck.
I mean, we could talk revisions tonight, or we could just review the minutes that I did. I printed them out and I handed them out to you.
You have both minutes here?
No, just the one.
Oh, okay.
But it kind of goes over what our on-site was about, and if we want to talk changes to the plan, we can do that tonight, or we can do it at the next meeting.
I'm personally am not prepared,
I'm not either.
so I don't think there's any point in
Okay, that's fine.
spinning our wheels. Did have one comment on the April 14th minutes. It's a nitpicker, but what the heck?
It's fine. I did them at the last second today, just to try to get some, so we don't have a backup.
It says I adjourned the meeting, but actually I moved to adjourn, and there was a vote, so.
Oh, shoot. I probably have that written down. But anyway, you moved to adjourn.
Yes, and all 4 present, which you should be able to enumerate, it was Alan, Wayne, me, and Stan. Voted yes.
Yeah, I'm sure I had whoever seconded it there. I think it might have been Wayne anyway.
That I don't remember.
But I have it written down, I know.
Other than that, I have no
All right.
comment. So I'll move to approve those minutes with that change.
I'll second it.
So, I don't know who gets to vote on this, but, so, all those in favor, starting with you, Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
That was Wayne and Alan. And I'm an aye as well.
Gotta be quick.
All right.
This time I'm lagging, so, okay. Any other?
Can I make an announcement?
Please.
On Saturday, April 29th, because I'm not going to see you before then, the 8th annual Harwich Tour de Trash Community Cleanup will be taking place. And it's a collaboration between the Town Conservation Department and the Harwich Conservation Trust. We're hoping to, we will be cleaning many a roadside and beaches and bike trails that day. You can sign up online for a route. We have a whole bunch of routes for you to pick. If you want to do your own route, that's not on there, that's fine too. Just communicate that with me. But you would show up to the community center at 10 o'clock that morning, get your bags, get your pickers, get gloves, and go out and clean your route. Bring the trash and recycling back, and get some wildflower seeds as a thank you, and be entered into a couple raffle prizes. But yeah, and it's a collaboration with AmeriCorps Cape Cod too. So we do encourage people to sign up online, either on the town website under the events calendar or the Harwich Conservation Trust page. but it's always a really fun morning, and it's kind of amazing how much, we get about 100 people usually, how much you can pick up in about 2 hours.
Really, 100 people? Really, that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So please come, tell your friends. It's family friendly too.
On that, is there, could we create a forum or something about the bottle bill, nip bottles and different things that don't have the deposit on them? I mean, I think that would help a lot of trash along the roadways if there was a 5 cent or 10 cent recyclable. I mean, when you walk up and down the road, that's all you see is nip bottles.
Oh yeah, that's one of the
and-
main.
And spring water bottle. I mean, if you put a fee on it, yeah,
buck a piece.
then people would pick them up.
That's right. And they
You're
take 'em
talking
home.
about a letter from the commission petitioning the state
Yeah,
to
to do something.
do a redemption.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of that for a while.
I mean, because it would help, because everywhere you walk, I mean, I walk up and down the road.
Oh yeah,
bottle,
my
bottle,
neighborhood's.
bottle, bottle. And it's illegal to drive and do that, but,
Well,
you know.
Yeah, right.
People don't want to go keep them in their
No,
they don't
you
want to
know.
keep them in their car, so they
Right,
shoot
they threw them out the window.
Throw 'em
So
out the
if you
window.
put
but you got that.
Might be a slight incentive.
And even some of the towns with their plastic water bottles, when that came out,
Yeah.
piped up because Connecticut, has a deposit on one of
Right.
those.
That would help all this.
It
you know?
helps.
Maybe we could, if we would, Mr. Chairman, maybe we can discuss that and maybe craft a letter.
Actually,
Sure,
I think on the water bottle one, wasn't that one of the questions on one of the state elections one time, a couple of years, and I think.
I don't remember.
No, possibly.
Yeah, well.
Craft
it's-
letter
it's an
for
uphill
nip
battle, but
I'm
deposit.
it's
sure it
good
is,
for
but it
us
doesn't hurt
to,
to say something.
For us, I mean, we can write a letter to, who in the state would such a letter be directed to?
I'll find out.
The governor.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
she might
because
actually be open
one of the
to it.
things that we did for Tour de Trash a couple years ago, we did it for a few years, was 3 of the founding members of this event, Nancy Hip, Dave Callahan, and Dick Ellis. It started because they were the ones going out on their own and picking up trash. And they said, hey, can we make an event out of this? You know, they're still going to do it, but, and they wanted to bring to light just the problem of nip bottles. So through the course of their year picking up, just themselves, they collected just nip bottles and stored them in poor Nancy's garage. There were trash bags full of these. And then the day of, we had people who were out picking on the roots separate those out too. And we combined them, and we had a guessing prize for who could guess how many were collected. But it was incredible. Like, we probably had 3 industrial contractor clear bags full of nips.
Wow. It would be an incentive. People would pick them up. Right?
Yeah, sure. So.
I can
is there a
draft that
way-
letter. I'll see, maybe they might know because they,
And you can get
they
the
were
Conservation
involved.
Trust behind it, and all the volunteers that show up that day could sign something.
So are you suggesting that would be part of Tour de Trash this year? And then there would be a number to include in such a letter?
Probably not, but just because we're too late into planning now, and the people who had done it in the past, I don't believe have been saving them for this past year. But I mean, a letter. We could have a letter. Yeah. I mean, it would
Maybe a
probably be.
State senator, a state rep.
It would, yes, Julian Sear or somebody like
Okay.
that. I don't know if it's in time for having people sign it at Tour de Trash, which is just next week, but it definitely something I could draft and get prepped for your next meeting.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I fully agree with it.
I mean, you
I'd be
could- one-
rich with that around my
I know,
neighborhood.
I'm saying. Well, with the economy so bad, it would help.
I know. I always take when I walk my dog, I take the dog bags, and then I have a bag for nip bottles
And the
too.
streets will be cleaner.
Yeah, I know.
Well, how about as a annual event for next year's Tour de Trash, encourage people to spend the year collecting nip bottles and assemble them all at next year's Tour de Trash. I mean, I bet you
You
measure
gonna
the
volunteer
resulting-
your garage? We'll figure something
Be
out.
careful what you wish for.
No, I do think it's a good idea because it is.
I'll mention that to Dinah when we get home.
Yeah,
See-
We did think of making some sort of. I brought this up to the 204 Sisson, Kara, that runs the 204 Sisson building, said I thought it would be cool, and we might do this, is to have people, if they find something, an interesting piece of garbage on their pickup, that we save that and make sort of a diorama of what you would collect, and in a tasteful way, but bring to light the problem of trash as an art piece. I don't know, just a thought. I've seen it done other places. It's kind of cool. Actually, yeah. Anyway, I
Okay.
don't think I have anything else.
Anyone else?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, hearing nothing else, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor, and let's do this one more time. Alan?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Stan? Mark? And I'm an aye. Okay,
Here's a pile.
Thank you all.
Please sign.
good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.